Well, good morning, Kicksters. Welcome back to the Morning Kick. It feels like we've had a bit of a break. I don't know if you know that I went away for a 2-week staycation. Latest thing in holidays, you save on your travel points, save on aviation fares, save on all that airport hassle, gee. But you also have to kind of plan things, what you're going to do at home. Came across a really good podcast. If you do want to check it out, go to michaelhyatt.com and have a look for his podcast on staycations. Just talks about how to really get the most out of it. And the idea is that you can actually have an intentional holiday, do things that you want to do, get refreshed, and I definitely needed to do that. But we're back at Excite Media, and of course, we do want you to know that anytime you need to get hold of the team at Excite Media and deal with your digital marketing, then please do contact us. Of course, a lot of people know us for our incredible design and website services that we've been giving for over 14 years, but right across the digital marketing spectrum, the team of over 25 are available to help you out. And so just give us a call or visit us at excitemedia.com.au. Well, on the Morning Kick this morning, I'm very pleased that we're going to be able to talk to a digital marketer by the name of Sam Colclough. And Sam, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
G'day, Andrew. Yeah, glad to be here.
Now, Sam, the good thing is we've been able to bring in an expert who we're also working with as a client, and your expertise is in the e-commerce space, and we thought we could probably get a few tips from how people can deal with both targeting in the B2B marketing space, also get some digital kind of principles, you might say, and have a bit of talk about e-commerce. But give us a bit of your personal background, and then we'll introduce the company that you're working with as well. Where did you come from to get your kind of first taste of that digital magnetism?
So, Andrew, I've been working for about 5 years in the B2B marketing space, whether that's working for agencies, kind of similar to yourselves, or in big business, which is where I kind of am at the moment. So I've been exposed to a few different industries in terms of what's out there. A lot of big tech, working with the likes of HP and Microsoft and some of those big ones that everyone knows. And also now kind of transitioning to a role at BidFood, where we basically, you might have seen our trucks around the place. We look after a lot of chefs and what they need to do to keep their kitchen running is basically what we look after. I've got 40 warehouses around Australia. We're probably the biggest one in the industry.
Now, a lot of people, if you're looking at the YouTube video or following us on Facebook or even now live on LinkedIn, if you look at the website here for BidFood, you may have seen that logo on trucks going around the place. Wholesale delivery of food and drink to the hospitality sector. Just in terms of how big is BidFood, I understand they're overseas. Sam, tell us a bit about the organisation.
Yeah, so BidFood as a company was originally founded in South Africa, Johannesburg. And that was in the late 70s. So since then, it was previously called Bidvest. So in 2016, we spun off that into what's now known as BidFood. So we operate every continent except America. Australia is actually one of our oldest operations. We do about 9 billion per year in revenue globally, and about 2.5 of that is here in Australia. So we're a large organization. We're listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. You can read all about us in our results that just came out last week, actually, on bidcorp.com. But more or less, like you touched on, really looking after food service and the hospitality sector to make sure they've got their food, meat, and liquor, so that when we go out on the weekends, we can sit down in a nice venue and have a good time.
Keep it coming back, those restaurants and hospitality. We need you. In terms of. It also has a bit of an arm that can help with the consumer or smaller business. So it's not just for the big hotels and things.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So the way we've structured our business is that we have 2 separate sales divisions that look after what we call free trade, which is the smaller operators, the hole in the wall cafes, mum and dad owned operations, maybe a local restaurant. And then we have the other side of our business, which is corporate and national focused. This is where we have well-known clients like Coffee Club, Accor Hotels, the Marriott, and some of those bigger, more established hospitality businesses, or perhaps accommodation businesses with a food service arm that we look after them as well. So those are kind of the 2 main areas.
Now, whether you're following us live or watching the replay, thanks very much for being with us on the Morning Kick. And remember that you can submit your questions below. So make sure that you either like, share, or send a question, and let's see if we can put something past Sam. Sam, we said today was going to be very much about targeting, and as you said, you've worked in the B2B space. Did you enjoy
Yes,
working with that big tech, the HP type and Microsoft type clients?
absolutely, absolutely. It was a really good experience, and um, the main key learning from that, which is an interesting one, because I think you'd certainly appreciate the power of digital marketing. But I think that what many people don't recognize is that in the end, in the B2B sector, ultimately the lead cycle and funnel ends with a face-to-face or phone discussion. So it's really about creating the link between digital and traditional marketing. I think that's one key learning I've taken from the whole. It still applies there. You might think that these huge companies have these intricate tech platforms and clever inbound funnels, but really, at the end of the day, you need that sales expert to help get deals over the line when in a B2B context, that is.
It's interesting when you look at some of the big boys who are producing products, and Microsoft even getting into hardware themselves now.
Yeah.
They're obviously creating products for different audiences. How valuable is this targeting to actually getting the right client to the right consumer, whether that's in B2B or B2C?
Incredibly important. Relevancy is king at the end of the day. And when you're constructing these audiences, whether it's through digital marketing platforms or perhaps you're purchasing lists from some of the lead gen companies out there, it's really important to make sure you're obviously talking to the right person. And more importantly, in B2B, talking at the right time. With these hardware cycles, like you touched on, it can take 2 to 3 years in terms of the refresh cycle. So how do you create strategies and time your campaigns correctly so that you're calling these end users at a time when they're actually in that consideration phase for any significant technology investments? So yeah, building your audience to be timed well with that is incredibly important. And I had plenty of campaigns that didn't always hit the mark, and timing was always one of the key considerations. They might have refreshed their fleet 6 months ago, so it's just really not the right time to be targeting those types of end users. And you can create strategies to kind of fall back onto if you do run into customers that are in that situation. So perhaps it becomes more of a educational, high-level content conversation where you might have some white papers or some resources that you can send through. But ultimately, you need to keep track of those product life cycles and get back in touch at a time when it suits. So I think, yeah, when you're constructing audiences, that's definitely a big consideration.
So, in terms of parking those learnings from that campaign that didn't go so well, is it the case of just having another go at something else, finding what works, and then repeating, or is there a little bit more to it?
Yeah, I think iteration is certainly always there. You can always pull efficiencies out of your call to actions. Creating incentives for the end user is also a strategy that we find works well. But you've also got to keep in context the touch points, right? Like the campaign I was referencing was the first or second touch point with that list of with that list of customers rather. And so when you're thinking about the total journey from acquisition through to a converted customer, you need to have the campaigns kind of continuously nurturing those end users through to that sale. And while you might not be effective in the first instance, if you can create follow campaigns and start profiling these customers as to where they're at in their journey, you can become more effective for the next campaign, the third campaign, the fourth campaign. So it's not a one shot to kill type thing. It takes a little bit of time to refine your strategy, I would say.
Let's look at some of the principles that we might apply to e-commerce. And I guess it doesn't matter really whether we're talking a small business startup, an established business, or a big B2B. We still are dealing with consumers at the end of the day. They're just in different roles. So what are some of the principles we should be thinking about in targeting and the setting up of an e-commerce store?
With our platform, at least, we don't run on like a Shopify or anything like that. Our whole technology stack at Bidfood is custom and bespoke. So what that enables us to do, Andrew, is be very specific about how we design these platforms. So our e-commerce environment, as an example, has inbuilt targeting mechanisms where we can break down our advertising on the site through to certain segments. So we can actually pull out like restaurants in the Brisbane region and hit them with specific advertising that's relevant to them. And I think that's what it comes down to in the end, is how relevant can you be to your customers. So yeah, thinking about certainly the relevancy of the message is really going to help when you're running any sort of campaigns through to existing customers, and it goes the other way too. We can manipulate our targeting to go in at that corporate level, which I was talking about earlier. So how do you get the bigger core hotels interested in certain products? It's all kind of at our disposal, and it's technology that we leverage in all of our campaigns that we take to market.
So when you think about those principles that people have in terms of using targeting to get better sales or to get more sales, why don't I just have a go at everybody? Surely it's a big world out there. There's plenty of customers. I don't know who's ready to buy. Just target the world.
Yeah, well, I would say have a crack at that and look at your performance of the campaign. So any campaign we do, we try and keep a very close eye on the engagement metrics. So higher up the funnel, how are the clicks looking? How's the click-through rate looking? What's the engagement like for the campaign? I think as you go broader and higher up into everyone, you begin to lose the ability to resonate. And certainly, if you're, for example, bombing your whole EDM or marketing mail list with the same message, you'll probably find it's not as effective if you were to carve out a segment of your distribution list, identify what's important to that list, and then create advertising that is linked with that desire from the end user. So again, it all comes back down to the ability to target and how you leverage that targeting with relevant messaging.
I think you've hit some really key words there. You talked about resonating. So surely if we're resonating with somebody, there's a sense that we're creating a relationship, they're gaining confidence, there's some trust there. You talk about relevance. I guess in the B2B space, you've already hit on the fact that that's about timing. It's relevant to what they want to do now. If you've missed an opportunity for them upgrading their hardware, you need to be relevant the next time it comes around.
That's true.
And then that's going to affect the end result, which is what we want, sales results. So I guess what you're saying is this is all about fine-tuning performance.
Exactly. I think the campaign's never perfect first time round, but don't lose heart. Keep trying different angles, different activations, different channels even come into it. You might find that in your sector, you've got higher performing channels than others. So it's about how do you allocate capital effectively to overinvest to those channels that get you a result. So that's also another part of the whole strategy.
Now, just talking about the platform and e-commerce for a moment, just putting the, whether it's WooCommerce, Shopify, Magento, putting the technology aside for a moment, can you give us some tips for what's going to actually improve that performance? What is going to make it potentially better sales? What are some of the things we should be wary of?
I think it all starts with unpacking the data and the performance and behavioral insights that you can pull from analytics platforms. The likes of Google Analytics is really important. We have some custom reports in Data Studio as well that you can pull in. But ultimately, they allow us to make better data-driven decisions about how we can improve the customer experience. So we might find a part of the purchasing lifecycle where there is a gap, and then try and create or remove friction from the e-commerce experience so that it's easier for the customer to make purchases. So really a strong focus on the analytics and what your customers are doing. There's some really good reports in GA that you can look at, Google Analytics, I should say. The funnel report being a key one. So if you've only got, if you can identify that customers are dropping off at the basket, for example, you need to, I guess, start talking to customers and getting some qualitative feedback, but also really get in there and take a ground up look at your checkout to try and identify where people might be falling off. But kind of the data kind of gives you a clue as to where there's a customer experience issue. And then it's only through development and testing that you can try and begin to resolve that customer experience issue. And then the end outcome of that whole exercise, which can take anywhere for us at least from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, you'll be able to go back to the same data points and see if the performance has improved in that area. So in this just example I mentioned then, perhaps you've got a better conversion. You've got better conversions coming out of the checkout area.
I do remember I was doing some research on a women's shoes website, and it had really great traffic coming to the website. It was very much a go-to place for women's shoes. They had all the range, top end, middle of the range, etc. But out of about 7,000 visits to the website per month, there are only 70 people that were actually adding some shoes to the basket. And then there was only 14 sets of shoes that were actually being purchased and going out the door. So we had to work out, why are people not confident to buy shoes online? And then give the right messages about, you can return the shoes, you can get 2 pairs for the price of 1, whatever it was, to give confidence. Can you think of any examples where you found that there was a drop-off, but you were able to find a solution? What did you do to fix some of these things when you see where the drop-off happens?
One thing we're working on at the moment, and I don't have the end result, but I do think it's important to raise, is that we've noticed that our conversion rate on mobile phones using a browser for our e-commerce platform is a lot lower relative to the app that we have, and relative to the desktop and monitor/laptop conversion rate. So as a business, we obviously are interested in getting as much conversions as we can. And so what we're doing at the moment is implementing some strategies to basically push mobile traffic over onto the app and use that as a call to action. So we've noticed that you're using less than optimal experience. Maybe you should try our app, and you can kind of put those little call to actions as like media queries on the site that essentially push traffic over onto our app, where we know that the conversion rates are better, we know that the average basket's bigger, and so ultimately it's still a work in progress, but we feel that sort of thinking and evolution will help with our sales outcomes.
Sam, it's been great having you on the Morning Kick. I want to close by just putting you on the spot and saying, let's say that Sam Colclough's just about to put out his own website with, maybe it's a range of watches or your latest fashion sensation. It's the Sam Colclough collection that's going to be going out there. What are 2 or 3 things that you would make sure your new website had that people could think about?
I think design and branding would be number one way to make a visual impact immediately. You've got a couple of seconds once someone lands on your site to make an impression. And the only way you can do that is through a clean, well-presented site, something I'm sure your agency would appreciate. Secondly, if we're talking about e-commerce, everything comes down to the range and price. So making sure that your portfolio of products is fit for purpose and appealing to the target market would be another key consideration. And then, like I said before that, pricing is another key determinant. So bring it all back down to the data, test different pricing structures, and see where you can find the sweet spot in terms of the conversion rate. But really complementing brand and I guess commerciality with your ranging and pricing decisions would be the best balance, I would think, if you're starting a new e-commerce site.
Some really great advice. Thanks very much for joining us on the show. And when you get your brand right, that comes back to that resonate word that Sam was sharing with us earlier, where you're starting to connect with the people who are the right people to buy your product, and they feel that they understand and are ready to buy. Fantastic. Sam, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Well, that's another episode of The Morning Kick. Looking forward to joining you again next week. So we've got some more guests lined up. Stay with us. Make sure that you like us on Facebook and share the videos. And of course, we'll be back with more inspiration for your business.